Hey, this is Sean with Grid 7, and it's a rainy day here in Phoenix, and so that gives me an opportunity, actually an excuse to stay in and finally document this method that I've been using. This is something, what I'm going to show you today is basically a way to make your business processes externalizable. In other words, make it so other people outside your organization, you can delegate functions to them. And specifically, I'm going to show you like an actual example of how I do this with WordPress development, in our case on Grid 7. This is something that it was a technique that I shared at PartnerCon. We had a table of Infusionsoft ICC consultants sitting around a table, and we had to share some techniques that we thought would be valuable for the group. And this is something that a lot of people came up to me afterwards and they said, wow, that seems amazing. Would you be willing to document it? So I'm doing that now with the hopes that I think this will be actually very useful for a lot of people. The meta here is that don't get hung up on the fact this is a very specific use case of it. In my case, again, being able to outsource WordPress development in a way that lets untrusted, outside laborers work on an instance. But the idea, the bigger idea here is this can work for any function, right? This can work for marketing. It can work for, your SEO consultants, copywriters, AdWords people. Once you truly grok this notion of exposing the joints, or making these very clean interfaces to expose to allow outside labor to work on your stuff, it's huge. So the inspiration for this kind of thinking, I guess, it's very much Amazon, like the way that they do their web services. On a technical level, it's like the same ideas that they use to apply to their stuff. Um, it's just applying these concepts to business, really. So I did a blog post yesterday that kind of gave the high level overview of this, and so today I figure I'll give you like some more concrete, just training and examples, and show you exactly how I do it. And this is the quote that, like, if you think anything, Jeff Bezos made this mandate way back saying that all of their interfaces had to be externalizable. They wanted all their engineers to start writing things in such a way that anyone outside the organization could use them. And that's totally transformed how they do things. It made an arm of their business called AWS, Amazon Web Services, and it's become like a multi-billion-dollar arm of their business. So this is really powerful stuff. So anyway, so this is a little syllabus that I want to go through here, and let's start off. Let's talk about the benefits first of why you would want to do this. So making aspects of your business externalizable gives you the ability to do outsourcing. It's useful even if you don't do outsourcing, but it facilitates really effective outsourcing. And so inherent then, you get all the benefits of outsourcing. There's cost and time savings on the development labor. If you're, let's say you're in Podunk town in Iowa that has no local developers, obviously, maybe there's one developer, you hire that person, what do you do after that, right? So it helps you overcome the local scarcity. It lets you parallelize. Maybe you, ordinarily, you have a couple developers on staff, but you have these times when you have to spike up and handle these, like massive, like a ton of work very quickly. And if you have this process, you have your things set up correctly for your business processes, then you can parallelize and you can bring in a bunch of people. And it basically would be burstable in the sense that, like, here's a good example in Amazon's case. It's like their idea that here's their weekly traffic pattern, right? And they have to always at any given time be able to handle 15% over capacity. And so this graph is saying that means throughout the week they're wasting 39% of their resources. They're going unutilized. And then even on a greater level, here's that same graph applied on a monthly scale, showing that during the month of November for them, this shows, Black Friday and whatever the spikes around Christmas time. But look at that, 76% of their resources for the month of November would be wasted. So it's this concept, and the same concept applies in using like in-house development. If you guys have these periods where you have these spikes in development needs, then keeping 10 developers on staff that go underutilized the rest of the time is hugely wasteful. So, so that's some of the value. The other thing, so it presumes if you're going to be using outsourced development, one flaw with outsourcing is that uh, you're now kind of at the mercy. If you give someone full access to your system and they're outside of the organization and things go sideways for some reason, let's say, I don't know, there's a misunderstanding and now your developer's pissed off at you and they've got the keys to your website, that's a really crappy position to be in. You're basically at the mercy of them and you have no negotiating leverage and it sucks. And I've seen that situation happen a couple times. So this method, if you set it up right, that doesn't happen. You always have the keys. I tell people, keep the keys to your donut shop. Keep in control. You've always got to have those keys. So this lets you do that. It also increases leverage in the sense that once you've commoditized and you properly made things very discreet and packageable and outsourceable like this, it improves your leverage because, again, you're not held hostage to one developer. They know that it's all very, very possible to easily give that to someone else to do. And so it strengthens your negotiating position. And then lastly, this is just process improvement. Like the end result of doing all this stuff is that you end up, I know some people say, no, you've got to have all your stuff internal and this expertise should be within your organization. And that's what you're building when you build a company. I would argue that no, building these systems, whether that labor is inside or outside your organization, is the real key. And the IP associated with having a system that allows you to outsource some of this stuff or bring it in-house, however you choose to do it, that is an asset, right? That lets you have a competitive advantage over people who have to have a ton of overhead dedicated to in-house development. So these are the main benefits of it. If you agree with all that and you want to learn this, then let's keep going. So in terms of what we're going to do, this is the game plan of the various pieces. I broke it into these different sections here. These are like the phases of doing this. So as a big overview, though, let's just quickly talk about what we're going to do. And let's jump to a tablet here. I think it'll be more useful to draw this out. Okay, so making a process externalizable, you have to decide what we're actually optimizing for, right? So if we're optimizing for, here, let me just draw, like, here's our job, right? Some papers, some things we need to do, right? If we're optimizing for speed, in other words, low time, then we're going to do it a different way than if we're optimizing for basically saving money. And so you got to figure out what your goal is first off. If we're going the route of optimizing for just getting it done as fast as possible, then we're going to basically split it. Once we've externalized it and we made it possible for anyone to work on it, we're going to split it amongst 3 contractors up front. So we're going to define this project and then we're going to give it to 3 different people, the 3 best people we think that can handle it. Or maybe it's 5 or 10 or however, whatever your trade-off is you're willing to go with here. So we give this project to these 3 people, and at the end of the day, we're not giving them the full project. We're just giving them like a pre-test. So, and we equate it on some axis. So either we say, you have 1 hour to work on it, and we know your hourly rate, so we can figure out that way. Or we say, here's $50, get as far as you can with this project on that $50. But at the end of that experiment there, you're going to end up with a clear winner. So maybe this person did the best job for us and is the most valuable. So that means you will have paid 2 people to do the same thing, basically. So you will be overpaying, but you'll be getting it, faster. You'll be getting your results immediately. So that's optimizing for time. If we're optimizing for money, then we don't do it in parallel. We're going to do it in serial. So we give that project first to someone, and we see how they do. We basically say, hey, you have 2 hours, go nuts, do what you can. Based on how they do, maybe that person, didn't turn out very good. So, no good. We're going to go to the next person now. Give it to this person. They worked out. Awesome. Good job. They're done. And now we only paid 1 extra person. But it took us, right? This guy took a day maybe to figure it out, and this person took 2 days, and so we're waiting longer to get our results, but we're reducing the amount of money we spend. And it really just comes down to what's important to you. You have to figure out the trade-off that you're willing to make. So the pieces we're going to cover are phased into these sections, but the general strategy is basically to first focus on making the environment that we're going to use, create this pre-test experiment, and how to best do that. Depending on what your situation is, you got to do something that's meaningful, that's going to get you good talent, and then to have that talent actually render the work, and then finally to incorporate whatever they did into your business. Right? Okay, so far so good. Let's get started on the first phase of this thing. So let's get down to it. So the first part is prepping the environment, and your environment is going to consist basically of two things. It's going to be the workspace where the actual work is rendered, where this contractor is doing their thing, and then it's the tools that are used to communicate to them the requirements, and then the back and forth that goes on if there's changes and whatnot. So, and I highly recommend doing a video. On everything that I've done in the last year, I've given contractors a video up front, and I found this to be invaluable in a lot of things, but mostly for communicating exactly what you want better, but also just humanizing it and showing you like who they're going to be dealing with, and just getting on the same page. So given how easy it is to make video, I'm doing this on a program called ScreenFlow. It takes 5 minutes to record a video and upload it to YouTube, so highly recommend doing that. Okay, so the workspace is going to be a little more complicated to set up, so let's first talk about the tools. You can use tools that are as heavy or as light as you need, depending on the situation. So I'm going to show you, this is just kind of a handful of stuff that we use. I've actually got a whole page on the Grid 7 wiki. If you look like Google for Grid 7 tools, we started a wiki for our consultants, and one of the pages on it is this big list of tools that we use. And so there's a lot more stuff beyond what I'm going to show you here that you can find on our wiki. So, but anyways, like these are the ones that I would just quickly brush over to let you know about them. So Basecamp, most people have heard of that. It's a pretty straightforward project management system. It's good for non-technical people. So if you're just trying to do task management and files and calendaring and that type of thing. Asana is more of a task, like a shared task list type thing. I use it. I'm a pretty big fan of this now. I find Basecamp to be a little too heavy, but Asana is great. Podio is more similar to Basecamp with more customizable aspects to it and a little different pricing model. Scrum, I won't get into what Scrum is. It's a way of doing, it's like a certain style of doing agile development. But if that's the kind of thing you're into, I've used Pivotal Tracker with some success in the past. That's a great app for doing that. And a friend of mine runs something called Sprintly, which is actually, it's a little more pricey, but in my opinion, it's a nicer system. It gives you better reporting, and it's like a Kanban Scrum mix for doing project management. Source control, GitHub at this point is probably the de facto thing to use there. Some people use something called Mercurial and Bitbucket. GitHub is what we use. Dropbox, most people know what Dropbox and Google Drive are, just like a shared central place to store files. It's useful in a lot of contexts. HipChat, like I've been using Skype. I have used HipChat in the past on more involved projects. The nice thing about HipChat, this is for instant messaging. The nice thing about it is that it retains, it's a more durable, like you're building a knowledge base. So when people communicate back and forth, they're dragging images in and talking about projects. You can start new rooms depending on like if there's a different product or project or some other reason for only a couple people to collaborate. You can like spawn different rooms, and this stuff sticks around. You can use it, you can search it afterwards. So it kind of builds this neat like shared chat-based knowledge base, you can think of it. But it's equivalent to something like Campfire, if you're familiar with that. And then lastly, what I'm going to show you in setting up is how we use EC2, which is Amazon Web Services Elastic Compute Cloud. It's basically like transient hosting, so the ability to quickly spin up your own server, configure it, and then tear it down later because you're only going to use it for a few hours. we use, disclaimer here is I'm one of the founders of Jumpbox. This is a product that we just happen to use, but it's a quick way to get set up on EC2 with your own like MySQL and Linux instance, and then you can quickly host WordPress on that. And then lastly, I use this program. It's called Backup Buddy. It's a plugin for WordPress, and it's the quickest way that I've found to clone a WordPress instance in terms of fidelity of getting an exact copy of a WordPress instance. It's neat because it lets you just run this backup. You can you get the benefit of having a backup, but you can also quickly migrate it somewhere else. And you'll see why this is valuable when we go through this. So those are the tools. It's basically you have to pick your tool set according to what you're trying to do, and don't go too heavy. I mean, you can get away with using a Google Doc in most cases just for collaborating and showing a task list. So don't go heavier than you need. But if the project warrants it, then consider using some of these other tools that are just specifically designed to be useful in this scenario. So, okay, so that's the tools. Let's talk about the workspace now. In our case, what we're going to be doing is cloning an instance of our live site. This is our live site right here. We're going to be cloning an instance of this using Backup Buddy, and we're going to migrate it. We're basically going to spin up a disposable server instance on EC2 and then make multiple copies of this. And I'm going to do it in such a way, like I'm going to actually take a little bit more time and show you exactly how I did it, because I did it in a way that allows me in the future to do it faster. So it's like, do you invest a little bit more up front so you now have this capability to like quickly spin up these instances, or do you just do a one-off shot? And so I'm going to show you the more involved way, but I think it's definitely more useful. Okay, so let's go do that. The URL, if you don't already have an Amazon Web Services account, it's aws.amazon.com. And very briefly, I covered this in another post, but these are the core fundamental computing infrastructure resources that Amazon itself uses, and they have since exposed these to the public. And it allows business owners, instead of buying servers in a data center somewhere and having to manage them, they can use just raw computing stuff. And it's pretty technical. I'm not going to go into all the different stuff that they have available. The only thing that we care about is EC2 right now. So I'm going to log in here so you can see my AWS console. I'm going to log in as a different user. Okay, so this is your dashboard in Amazon Web Services, and I just want to show you this so you understand that there's more resources you can use besides, but all that we care about is EC2 right now. That's their elastic compute cloud, and that's what's going to allow us to host this disposable instance. And so the way that we're gonna do this, if you go up here and you Google AWS Marketplace. Go in here and then search for the LAMP Jumpbox. Stands for Linux, Apache, MySQL, PHP. So we're going to use the LAMP Jumpbox, and if you don't already have an account, you got to sign up for an account first. So I'm going to assume you already did that. So this is basically a fully configured Linux, Apache, MySQL, PHP instance that we can just spin up immediately on EC2. And the goal here is to bring this up. We're going to customize it so it'll allow us in the future to just very quickly like have access to this little disposable instance we can bring up whenever we want, and then instantiate it, move our clone backup in there, and then just give it to someone else. And we can do this, like bring up 5 at the same time and give 5 different developers their own little sandbox. So we're going to bring it up. I'm already logged in. We're going to bring it up in the Western region, and we're going to use the micro instance. So this is going to cost us, it looks like 3.5 cents per hour to run this thing, and we're only going to run it for like not even an hour here just to show you. So don't worry about any of this. We're just going to say launch with one click. Actually, I'm going to switch it to the micro instance so it's cheaper, and say launch with one click. Continue without a key pair, don't worry about that. And so in the background, what it's doing right now, it's actually launching this computer in Amazon's cloud, and it's injecting this jump box, which is our thing. But it's basically, it's just configuring this computer, and then we're going to have access to that. Okay, and so you can see that it just finished. And the way we get to it now is if we go back to our console here and we fire up EC2, we're going to see that that instance should be running. If we go to instances, I'm going to switch the region. Where do we do this? Oh yeah, switch the region. So we brought it up in Northern California. You can see that there is our running instance. So the next thing we're going to do is we need to access it. So this big long nasty URL here is where this thing lives right now. And a little secret that I don't know, not many people know, but this part right here, if you take that, it's the IP address of this thing. So if we do this, so now we're on the instance. This is the aspect that my company provided, which is just this like configuration step. It does all the messy under the hood work for you. So just give it your email address, make up a password. I'll just say password. Choose something more secure than that, obviously. And then we got to give it, this is a security measure, but you got to get the instance ID from here and then put that in here so it knows that you are the right one accessing this. So click this last thing, configure it. It takes about 5 seconds here to do its thing. And there we go. So now we have this running instance. It's a brand new thing. Okay, so if we look at it, there's going to be nothing there now. This is just like the README that comes in this thing. This is an empty server right now with Apache and MySQL. It tells you where the database password and all these instructions on how you can do stuff to change stuff. Really, all that we care about is knowing what the database is and being able to add files to it. And so I'm going to fire up a FTP client. It's actually an SFTP, secure FTP. We're going to take this address up here, and that's fine. We can use this whole thing. It works the same as using the IP address. It's going to be username admin, password, because I created that password, and then we can just leave this blank for now and set it to SFTP. Okay, so we connect to it. We're going to go to the root directory of this thing, go var data and public. And so per the instructions here, this is basically where your web server is. This is where you'll put the files that you put your website. So we need to do one, and here we go. Here's that directory if you need more instruction. So we need to do one thing that is not intuitive here. And this is, I know, this is a little technical, and you just need to, you don't have to like know all the syntax and all the technical of what we're doing, because you can actually give this video to your developer and say, hey, go do this for us. But what we're going to do is right here, yeah, we need to make it writable. So we're going to grab this command and we need to SSH to it, or actually let me make sure. I think we can do it with the FTP client. Go in here and say get info. So we need to make it writable, not to the world, just to the group. So this is the same thing as executing the command in Unix called change mod, and I can do it through my SFTP client, or you can just do it using, if you SSH into the box and do this, you can do that. Okay, so what that did, it made that directory writable, and so we can now put files in there. And to prove that this is the web server directory, let me just quick create like a text file. Sorry, let me do this in text edit and TextMate. Just want to prove to you that we are actually in that directory. So we take that file and we're going to put it in the public directory. And then if we reload this page, I'm just going to open it in a new tab in case we need any of these settings here. And you can see that in fact that is now, we just put in that file and it's where the website is going to live. Okay, so next what we need to do is we're going to put our backup buddy script in there. And so backup buddy is this plugin in WordPress. It lets you clone your site. And so I've already installed that plugin, and I've actually already got a backup of my site. And so I'm not going to go through the installation of this plugin, but once you install it, basically you just configure it, tell it where you want the backups to go. I have mine going into Dropbox and also going into my S3 account on Amazon. But this is the last backup I have. If you hadn't created one yet, you'd say make a complete backup. But I'm just going to use this one. So these backups for me are accumulating here. And so I'm just going to look at what the latest backup is. And so you can see there was one 5 days ago. And so what I need to do, the way that you move or the way that you migrate sites using Backup Buddy is you first need to go to the Migrate Restore. I'm going to grab this Import Buddy, give it a password, and again I'll just say password. Save. It's going to download that file. Here it is. And now I am going to put this file, and get rid of this thing that we put in there. And I'm going to put this import buddy file in the root of the web server. And now at this point, if we wanted to, we could keep going here, but I'm going to do a critical step. Like if we were just doing this on a one-off basis, we would do the rest of it from here. But what I want to do is I want to actually freeze this image so we can use it in the future. So we basically don't have to do all the stuff we just did to get to this point. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to take this instance that's running on EC2 and we're going to turn it into what's called an AMI, or an Amazon Machine Image. So at this point, we'll just go right click on it and say, let's see, create image, EBS AMI. And I'm just going to, for the sake of it, just going to call it, AMI for video. Say yes, create. And so now it's going to go do its thing, and it's going to take a little while. So I'm going to fast forward here. Or actually, so you don't need to worry about this, but it's doing its thing. It's turning this into an AMI. And so basically at any point in the future, I can come in here to AMI. And this is when I had, okay, so it's not done yet. It's pending because it's doing its thing. But in the future, it's like a template that will live here. And so if we want to just go instantiate this thing in the future, it'll get us to the point where we are now. So, so let's keep going. So we're going to we've got the import buddy script now. It's up there. Now we need to go grab our backup and put that latest backup in there. So I'm going to upload that. Okay, and so there you can see that finished. The backup file is there, and now we are ready to actually instantiate this WordPress instance. So let's go back here. We left this page open so we could see what our what these passwords are. And if we refresh, or actually if we go here now and say import buddy.php, this is the wizard that's used to now instantiate that instance. So the password that we chose to this was password. You can see that it found the backup file there on the server. So we're going to say next step. It's unzipping everything. And this is the URL that it's going to use for the new site. If we wanted to change that, we'd have to play with DNS, but this is fine. We're just going to do it there. Here, we're going to refer back to this file to get the database settings. So it's localhost, which is fine, mydb, and my user. And then password was just password, remember. So let's test that. It worked. Next step. It's doing its thing. It did the database, it did the files, and then we go next step. This last thing is just like a cleanup. So it runs the cleanup process. And there you can see it's done. So we open the website, and now you can see here's an exact clone of our live site on grid 7. Right? And so you see the address. This is living on EC2, but it's an exact copy of it. Okay, so refer back to syllabus just so we know what we just did there. So we prepped the collab tools. This is just the tool set we talked about. The workspace now is ready in terms of here is an instance that we can assign to someone that's outside of our organization. They can do all they want, they can break it, and it's only going to break this thing. It's not actually going to affect our live site, but it's a full copy of the database and all the WordPress files. So good deal. Let's go to the next section on here, which is speccing the project and requirements. Okay, so for this part, I figure the easiest way to do this is to actually just show you the job posting that I did for this last project that we did. And you'll get an idea of how I defined the project and communicated the requirements. And so that's probably the easiest thing, is just to show you that. So I used a system called Odesk. This is like Elance or Guru or any of those outsourcing systems, but I like this one. This is the best one I've found so far. So if we go in here and we go to the Recruit tab, this will show you, this is the project right here. You can see some of the past projects that I've done. It lets you sort them by completed and filled and all that stuff. So anyways, but this is, let's go to the project. And we want to, I just want to see the posting actually, so how do we do that? You edit. Okay, so here's the job posting. And I'll let you, I'll include a link to this so you can actually, go in and see how I did things. But basically, I broke it into the 3 separate bug fixes that we determined that we had. And then I did this video, and I think video is crucial. You can do it without video, but the benefit you get by spending just 5 minutes to do a video, I think, is just so great. And it puts your contractor so they actually know you going into it. They can look at it, see exactly what you're talking about, and it makes the interaction more personal. And I don't think there's any value. You can't substitute the face-to-face of having a video. So I'll link to the video. We won't actually watch the whole thing now, but I basically do this kind of video where I summarize and show exactly what we want, and we make it goal.
This is Sean Tierney from Grid 7. This is a quick
so
video to outline the 3 issues that we're experiencing right now.
So I'm not gonna, you don't have to, you can watch that on your own time if you want to see it, but basically summarize the project. And I broke it into, I basically said $15 for each issue that you fix. And we put this out there, and applicants will apply to this, and then what you'll get is, let's see if I can find the view job applicants here. So you can see the people, active candidates. Let's see, inactive maybe. Invited. At this point, so you can see that I invited one guy. We had one guy. Looks like he was saved. But you'll basically get some people that find it on their own. You'll be able to go out and find some people. And the idea at this point, remember, go back to that diagram that we had. Are you optimizing for your time, or are you optimizing for your money? If you're optimizing for time, then go pick a couple candidates, see who looks best, and invite them and give them, basically say, throw the project out to them. In this case, I didn't need to do the pre-test because it was such a small project, but if this was like a massive development project you're going to do, just say, get 3 people and say, each of you go work 1 hour on this, and let's see how far you can get. So that's the idea of it. And then I want to, this concept, I threw in this Van Halen M&M technique. I don't know if you've ever heard of this, but this is actually really interesting. And I always do this in my videos, is I'll put in a little thing, Van Halen M&M. This is worth looking up because it's really interesting. Van Halen, one of my favorite bands, when they toured, in their contract, they used to put this little, very like nitpicky thing, and everyone thought they were like prima donna because they said, we require that the bowl of M&Ms in the green room where we hang out cannot have any brown M&Ms in it, right? Something just like completely rock star, like, screw you guys, I can't believe you're that prima donna. But actually, it was really smart, and this is why they did it. They did it because they wanted to see if people were paying attention and actually read the whole contract. And so if they showed up and there was a brown M&M in their bowl, then they're like, these guys clearly didn't read the contract. We're dealing with like all these pyrotechnics and stuff, and they're probably sloppy in other regards. And so they would, it's like a canary in the coal mine to know if who you're dealing with is legit. So in the same way, like I usually put something in the video saying, in the last one I did, I think I said, tell me your favorite food, and if you don't tell me your favorite food in the application, then this is an invalid application. So it's kind of the same thing, but it's actually a useful, like, just a useful test to see if people are paying attention. So anyways, okay, so that is the specking the requirements. You can do, obviously you have to figure out whatever your situation will be different, but that's how I did it for ours. Okay, so you created the job posting. Now it's time to do basically these things. So we're going to recruit talent. That's basically, it's going out and seeking out people who are going to be good candidates for you. So in our case, I just basically said WordPress. And like the way that I found the people that I invited, you go through here, I constrained it, to only using people with, I think it was 4.0 or better feedback. And I knocked down their hourly rate. I said max $20 per hour. And they give you other options. You can ask for like specific skills. You can ask for like certain language proficiency. If you prefer dealing with like South Americans, or actually I have had a lot of luck with Eastern Europeans. I have, for what it's worth, I have not had a lot of luck with like Indian developers for some reason, but I don't know, everyone's different. So anyways, they give you all these ways to filter it down, and the idea is to narrow your candidate selection. Like there's 22,000 right now, so narrow that down to like a set of maybe 20 people that seem like the most qualified, and then just start inviting them. And not everyone's going to want to work on your project, so maybe 5 of those take you up on it, and then just go from there. And so now that's the recruiting phase of this. Okay, so that's recruitment. So now, when you're ready, you're actually ready to start the project. You hire some of those people and constrain it. There's like this back and forth, at least on Odesk, where you don't have to do the original terms. Like you can throw it out to them. If they accept it, that's great. Or they can like throw back a counter offer. So there's like that little dance of negotiation. But whatever it is, like hire a few people and actually begin the project with them. And I recommend, some people are going to say do spec work, like ask people basically to work for an hour free to prove they can do it, and then hire them on for like a bigger project if they succeed. I'm not a fan of spec work. I pay people's full hourly rate, but just constrain it to just like a limited time, maybe an hour with each of the people, each of the candidates that you're vetting here. So then it's time to actually run the experiment, and basically now, so give them their instance. We showed you how to do, or I showed you how to make the EC2 instance. A neat technique now that we've made this thing, the AMI is great as a template for being able to, in the future, like for future projects, to go back to this AMI, instantiate it, bring a new backup clone, and then make a brand new version without having to do all that configuration steps that we did. The snapshots feature, once you, like we did here, how we have a running instance, we can actually use the snapshots feature to go snapshot it and then just make like 5 copies of it immediately. And so I won't go through all this because I know we're getting kind of long here and it's more technical stuff, but just be aware that this is a really useful feature for quickly just on EC2, basically like Time Machine lets you take a snapshot of something and you can either roll it back or you can clone it and bring up more instances. So assign them basically once you've hired the person. I never email credentials just because email is insecure, but I will get their Skype address. And so like I'll just show you an example of some Skype chats that we had. But I always send the credentials. I ask for their Skype address. Pretty much every international contractor uses Skype, and Skype is secure, so it's safe to send credentials through that. If it's an involved project, and again, this is where like choose the right heaviness of the collaborative tools that you're using. Since this was just kind of a quick thing, I didn't like set up a formal project management system for this. But if we were going to do an ongoing project, I would have probably gone in here and created like a new Dropbox folder and invited that person to it, or maybe a Google Drive folder, depending on what we wanted. But I didn't do that. We use this Skype thing. So here's an example of this guy. Here's the dude who worked on our last project, and I'll show you just some chat history here. But this is basically us, and I'll even post the transcript if you want to see how we communicated. But it's basically you kind of feel them out and get to know how good they are, and then you give them the credentials, turn them loose. If they have any questions, they'll probably come back to you. And you can see in here, we started at like 3:45 p.m. and then all the way to being finished and wrapped up, it was 9:30 that he was working on and off in the background. So in a matter of 6 hours, we had this whole project wrapped up and implemented. So pretty cool. All right. So I mean, that's basically it. In this case, when I did it, I was remember those 2 paths, parallel or serial. I did serial because I was actually I was going to try one guy at a time, and it just happened that this first guy worked out. Had I been running in parallel, I would have had those 3 guys working simultaneously. But yeah, so I did serial for that one. You can do whatever makes sense in your situation. So I didn't even need to choose a winner. That first guy happened to be a winner for me. Okay, so the last thing to do, or actually there's 2 last things. So they render their work. This guy he fixed the bugs that we had. Basically, our bugs involved like a caching plugin, what was the other things? It all had to do with plugins and settings in the database and stuff not carrying over. But anyways, he found them, fixed them. One was actually a bug with a plugin that we were using, and he even submitted a patch to that project and fixed the project. So this guy is really good that I found. But anyways, now that you have this running instance, though, it's out here. It lives in the cloud, right? It's not integrated with your live website yet. So you still need to incorporate their changes into your site. And again, use whatever method seems most appropriate given how complex the project is. In my case, I only had 3 lines of code to change. So I just asked him, what did you change? And then I literally went in here, like he did his work. If we log in, and because this is a clone here, I'm just showing you what it's like to get in there. Um, you definitely probably want to change, this is just a mental note, but you want to change the password on your WordPress instance because this is a copy. You want to flip it, like make it something generic and give the contractor so they don't have your actual credentials, because this has my actual credentials just because it's a clone of our live site. So you can see here, this was like the bug that he fixed. When you move a copy of WordPress that has super cache enabled, this was one of the bugs. So he fixed this, and then basically I took his code changes and I just asked him, like, what files did you edit? And we go in here in WordPress, and he basically said, like, line so and so of this file, and we just take that and then go into my copy and apply it there, right? He could have given me files, he could have given me a database script, whatever it was. But the idea, okay, and then let me just clarify this. You don't need to know, again, the details of what's going on here. It just happens that I'm technical enough to be able to apply this. But once you trust your contractor enough, ideally you'll earn that trust and be able to give him or her access to your live production site. In this case, that's exactly what I did. I had him give me some changes. I tried to implement them. They didn't quite work, but I trusted him at that point. So I just gave him access to my production site at that point because he had earned my trust. So again, you'll know from working with the person. We had like 3 hours of on and off Skype chats, and by that point, I knew he was legit. But anyways, the mechanism for incorporating their changes, there's different. This is probably the weakest part of my process at this point. There are other projects that I'm looking at, and hopefully I'll be able to report back if they work. But this looks really promising. There's something called WP Stack. Here, go back. This, I will let you know if this is a good method here, but this is like a formal way for doing what's called continuous deployment, which is what we're kind of fudging here using Backup Buddy, but this is like an actual legit way to do this and to be able to assign it, make it externalizable and assign it to outside contractors. So anyways, wrapping up. So the last step here, and what I'm doing now religiously is with all the contractors I work with, whether they're on Odesk or Elance or if they're local people, I keep a spreadsheet of their information and just the basic columns. I'm actually starting to share this with other people, so it's by me, last time I used them, their name, contact info, what they do, their skill set, hourly rate, when it's appropriate to use them, what service I found them on, and then the notes on how they performed, and then the link back to their profile page. And it's just nice to centralize this somewhere so you don't have people like spread across a bunch of different systems and you forget about someone. So anytime someone comes to me now, they say, do you have a good WordPress guy? I can just go in here and see who was good and give them that. So anyways, hopefully this is useful. Again, the meta of all this was a very specific technical use case for this. But the idea, back way up and look at what we did today. We made our system bulletproof in the sense that we could expose it in a way that wouldn't harm our production site and let us work with outside labor, and then incorporate those changes into our live site. And once you understand that, you can apply this type of thinking to basically any function in your business, whether it be marketing or accounting or SEO stuff, and just pretty much any function you can think of. You can start to make these really clean joints in your business where you can partition things like this and make it so external people can work on it. So anyways, that's the technique. Hope you found it useful. I will publish future posts as I flesh out and find more useful things that I think will be helpful for people. One little shameless plug here that I want to make is Grid 7. We now have this, if you scroll to the very bottom, we have a wiki set up. And so a lot of the tools that we used and a lot of the books and articles and stuff are on here now. And this is editable by anyone in our consultant network. And we're always looking for good people to work with. If you're a developer, or you're an Infusionsoft consultant or a designer, or anyone with a skill set that looks related to what we need, we'd love to work with you. So just go here, click sign up, and apply to join our network. And we'd love to send you some business. We're focused on originating and like educating clients and setting the strategy, and then we like to hand off the actual implementation to people, just using our own methods here, the way that we outsource and subcontract and do stuff. So if you'd like to work with us, sign up on our consultant referral network, and we look forward to working with you. Hope you found this useful. And actually, real quick, one thing I forgot, and because this is important, is that it's easy to forget that you're running an instance on EC2. And so make sure that when you're done with that you go back in and you terminate any running instances. So you can see I've got that one running instance. Just go in here, and it's really easy to shut it down here. I'll show you. So make sure you're in the right region, and then go select it, actions, terminate. And that's it. Yes, terminate, and so it shuts it down. And then I guess the other thing, just to throw this out there, is consider for a fact that everything we just did, I know it got kind of technical there for a minute, but this series of steps is a process. And so once you have this recipe of steps that you use when you're outsourcing stuff, that actual process itself can be outsourced. In other words, you can find a developer to go and do what we just did, and you can find like a systems admin person or a project manager to assign to like get it. So basically say like, go find that project manager. We have these 3 things that we need done to our WordPress instance. Go hire, or go find 3 WordPress contractors and manage this process according to these instructions. So it's like layered outsourcing, layered upon outsourcing. And so it's a little bit meta in that regard, but you can literally apply this kind of thinking to any aspect of your business and start to, gradually more and more systematize what you do, and then delegate chunks of your whole business, just like Tim Ferriss style. Start to outsource more and more of your business. So anyways, hopefully this was useful. If you have, you should definitely watch, by the way, last thing I promised, but look up Werner Vogel's keynote. You should absolutely, if you get time, watch this keynote. It's a really good, I think it's specific to Amazon, but there's such good content in here, and you can definitely apply a lot of the lessons and a lot of stuff we talked about. You'll get other ideas by watching this video. And there's also one other book, if you're interested in this type of stuff, on Amazon. It's called Systems Thinking. This is an awesome book that, or no, I'm sorry, that's not it. It's Thinking in Systems. Yeah, this book. This is a primer to this whole concept of thinking in terms of stocks and flows and systems, and just trying to extract yourself from doing one thing to more about what is the systems involved and the process for solving this stuff. So anyways, thanks for listening. Hope you found this useful, and we hope to talk to you soon.